Hello, this is Dr. Flight, and this presentation is on the new product development process. This video or lecture is actually an overview, and what we'll do is talk about 5 major steps that happen during the new product development process. This acts as an introduction to really the whole rest of the course. So the new product development process. Here it goes. As we begin the new product development process, we should make sure that it's clear the first thing that we're developing is not an actual product, but an idea for a product. So typically what will happen is a brainstorming period will take place, or someone will come up with a new idea, and what we'll establish is something called a Product Innovation Charter, a PIC. So the Product Innovation Charter is a written document that describes an idea which will lead to a potential new product. The PIC then is used as a document that will drive the entire process of developing a new product and really organize our thoughts. It actually forms a focus for us to be able to move forward with the product development process. So the PIC, or the Product Innovation Charter, is a term that you'll want to remember and kind of keep up with as something that describes an idea that could eventually lead to a new product. As we walk through the product development process, there'll be a series of steps, activities, and phases that we want to walk through from the very beginning of idea generation all the way through a launch period or commercialization for the product. In this segment, we'll walk through and briefly describe each of these concepts. So opportunity identification, concept generation, project evaluation, development, and then launch. One of the key ideas with this process is that we want to go through a series of stages or steps. But it's important to make sure with any process that as you complete one step, there should be some check or verification that the process is working properly before you move on to the next step. So traditionally, we would call this a stage gate process, where you have a stage and then you have some type of an evaluation which forms a gate. And if you pass the evaluation, then the project moves forward to the next phase, or it successfully moves past the gate that has been created to hold it back if the product or idea or the concept is a no-go type of a situation. Traditionally, though, we're often very anxious to move products along this process, and there's certainly pressure to avoid, skip, or otherwise not have gates in place. So there's an occasional time when we have a project move forward, but maybe in a conditional sense, or maybe move forward while we're still completing a stage that was just before it, not quite finished yet, and so forth. So we have something, instead of a stage gate term, there's a second term that is sometimes used called a fuzzy gate. The fuzzy gate concept is where we have a conditional move forward or a conditional go, so that we could take the project idea to the next stage, but we're still finishing up some work from the prior stage. And assuming that the stage that we're just coming out of, assuming the product again continues to perform well, then we'll move forward. The key point here, though, is to move the project forward and to accelerate it through the product development process. But bad ideas, bad product ideas need to be stopped. So at some point, a fuzzy gate can't be allowed to happen if it means moving a bad idea on to the next stage, because when we do that, we're going to use up a lot of firm resources, and it'll distract us from other ideas that are better, and we'll get stuck in producing a product that really should never move forward anyways. So there's concept of a fuzzy gate exists as a tool to move and accelerate the product through the product development process faster, and it helps us avoid this firm stage gate philosophy. The text will talk about another term called a hollow gate, and that's one where we allow a project to move forward. However, even though it's moved forward, it doesn't have a lot of support. So the project may move forward but never be worked on in another stage, or it might move forward and just sit at a particular stage and never really progress any further beyond where it is. So the development process, the new product development process, has gone through a number of different versions or iterations, and nowadays in our current kind of state of product development, there's the thought is that we're in what's called a third generation process. And the idea of the third generation process is that we want to be flexible enough and nimble enough to create products that are able to change and adapt to very rapidly to consumer demand and interests. And we don't want the process to be so rigid that it will prohibit the types of changes to the product that are necessary while it's in the process development. So having overlapping phases and being able to use this fuzzy gate concept allows us to produce some sort of flexibility that is, again, particularly important to developing breakthrough products that address new to the world problems and provide new to the world solutions that might be out there. So again, flexibility is important in developing new products so that the new product reflects what the market wants, which might be changing very, very rapidly. However, acceleration through the product development process is important as well, meaning that we don't want our product development process to be bogged down and slow down due to technicalities. We want to be able to move it along. However, the third element is we don't want to move along product ideas that are bad ideas that will ultimately fail in the marketplace. So we have to have enough rigor with our product development process so that we have successful products, but they're timely and they match our consumers' expectations. So when we think about stage gates, we can think about our 5 different very broad phases and then different questions we would ask as we finish up or conclude one phase and we attempt to move to the next one. The first phase is opportunity identification, where we're looking for ways we can take advantage of changes in the marketplace or the industry, and we're asking questions like, where should we look for new ideas? Where should we look for opportunities? Where will those present themselves? Assuming we find opportunities in the marketplace or ones that we think we can take advantage of, then we go on to the next stage, which would be concept generation. Upon concept generation, we want to start asking ourselves, is the idea that we just had a good one? So during concept generation, within this period of time, we typically create the PIC, the Product Innovation Charter, and then we begin to evaluate the PIC and we ask ourselves, is this worth moving forward to do some more formal screenings on? Does the idea have merit? If we say yes, then we create a project out of it and we start to formulate the notion of what the product will be, what some of its features will have, what role it will play, what needs it will satisfy, and so forth. So once that product idea is developed based on the actual PIC, then we move it forward again and we ask ourselves, well, will this product make us money? Will it be profitable? Will we be able to obtain market share that we think will make sense for us and for the industry and so forth. That's what we would think of during the full screen. So again, we have another stage here, and we have another gate where we start to ask questions. And if we can successfully move the product along, then we go into what's called development. So we actually develop prototypes, we develop a marketing plan, we develop the different features that the product will need in order to actually bring it to market. And then again, we ask ourselves, has the product been developed? So here we look at product quality. We look at whether the product actually meets the customer's needs. We look to make sure, we start thinking about what the brand might be and what the positioning of the product might be and so forth. If we feel like we've moved it along far enough, we can start the pre-launch stage where we start doing market tests to confirm that the product will sell well in the marketplace. And again, once those types of questions have been answered, then we can move it on to full commercialization. Okay, so again, there are a series of stages here depicted by the elements here on the left, and then for each stage there's a gate that's holding us back, and once we answer the questions in that gate, then it allows us to move forward to the next stage, and so on and so forth. Another way to look at this is described here in this diagram, where we begin with some type of firm strategy, which leads to opportunity identification, concept generation, and so forth through our 5 different stages. And at each stage, we begin to look at different characteristics and different tools and techniques that we would use to ask the questions to allow us to move forward. So we have under opportunity identification, we have various resources, we have various mandates, we have the PIC which is formed, and then we move into the concept generation. And then again, a series of tests that we can perform, which moves us into concept evaluation, the full screen, and so forth. So here's just another illustration of how we have a series of steps, and after each step we have a check to make sure that we can move forward with a good idea. So to talk about these ideas a little bit, let's start with opportunity identification and selection. So as we do business, we find new ways we can satisfy the customer through our existing products, maybe extensions to products that we already offer. We hear from the customers about new product ideas, and so forth. So we want to be able to collect or a depository or kind of record the areas where we feel as a company we could move into that and take advantage of an opportunity that either has a weak competitor in it or maybe no competitor at all. We want to be able to evaluate opportunities as we see them, and these are typically fairly broad, large changes that happen in our external environment. Changes where we see large market trends taking place that we feel like we can take advantage of. Maybe a new technology emerges that we have access to, that we could, literally create a series of products, and it's the opportunity of the new technology that's allowing us to do this. So opportunity identification is a lot like in the SWOT analysis, the SWOT SWOT analysis, where you have an opportunity that presents itself. The question is, as a firm, is this an opportunity we want to try to take advantage of and create a new product and move forward in? So different sources then to be able to identify such opportunities exist. Underutilized resources, for instance. So like if I'm a company and I have a certain manufacturing process and maybe I'm not at full capacity, then maybe I could utilize the process of manufacturing more efficiently, and that slack I might have may allow me to create a new product on a product line, or maybe I have access to a resource, maybe a raw material or something along those lines that my competitors may not have. There's external mandates, certainly trends in the marketplace that could take place, or if a competitor all of a sudden leaves our industry, that opens up an opportunity for us to, address what is now a void in the marketplace because a competitor left, and as a result, I can come in and maybe fulfill a need that is unmet, gaining market share in the marketplace. Moreover, and finally here, we have internal mandates as well. So there may be opportunities that we have, maybe on a platform, for instance. We may have a platform of products that are underutilized. I might be able to find new uses for my products if I adapt them and change them a little bit. So there may be elements inside my firm that I'm not taking advantage of that I could take advantage of as a new opportunity to create a new product. So stage one deals with identifying opportunities. These are big, large, gaping holes where I might create a number of new products in order to be able to take advantage of some opportunity that is now apparent to us. Okay, step two then deals with this idea of concept generation. This is typically where the brainstorming activities happen. So I might see that there's an opportunity I could take advantage of. And so what I want to do is brainstorm and come up with a lot of different product ideas that utilize internal resources, but then take advantage of some market opportunity that I see out there that has come to play. So we want to collect new ideas. We want to collect information for new product concepts, again, that fit the opportunity and may potentially create new opportunities as well. Again, we would often begin to think about forming the PIC at the end of this stage where we have a product innovation charter. If not during this stage, it would be during the concept project evaluation stage. But we may, for instance, see an opportunity and brainstorm, and we may come up with 30 or 40 new product ideas right off the bat. And then the next stage then is to take those product concepts that we've generated and begin to evaluate them. So as we begin to evaluate product concepts, what we want to think about is whether they're technologically feasible, whether they're going to meet market demands, and whether we can make them fit our financial investment type of priorities within the firm. So at this point, it's important to think about whether this is a potentially profitable venture that we're going into. We want to start thinking about market size, how this might impact other products that we already have, and so forth. So the evaluation stage then takes your product ideas and essentially rank orders them from the most desirable downwards to the least desirable. And right off the bat, what we want to start doing is eliminating bad product ideas. One of the failures or errors that we see is when we refuse to eliminate a bad product idea. This is the first area or first major step that we can take to discarding ideas that aren't going to be profitable, or ones that aren't technologically feasible for our company, or ones that the market simply doesn't want. So again, this stage, if the PIC has not been developed yet, it'll be developed here. And again, the Product Innovation Charter is a document that outlines the concept and sort of focuses the efforts towards the product that we'll be moving forward with. Okay, so stages of product evaluation then include a screening process, right? So the pre-technical evaluation, and this might be a way where we can look at the profitability, the feasibility, and so forth. There's a concept testing phase where we ask our market and our consumers their likelihood to buy the product. So this is a concept test is typically done outside with external potential customers to gauge the marketability of the product itself. We have something called the full screen, and the full screen is a full financial analysis of the new product inside the firm. So the full screen tends to be an internal device where we look to see whether this is a product idea that will make money, that will meet our goals and objectives, and fits into the strategies that we've designed for our products and product arrays moving forward. So project evaluation then is where we think about the feasibility of producing the product on the assembly line. We begin to think about sourcing the raw materials and whether the technical aspects of the product itself begin to come into play. We may even think at this point about how the product fits with our other production capacities and whether we could, for instance, create the new product on the same assembly lines we already have, or what some of the tooling aspects would be in the production. Maybe we think about some platform planning elements where, maybe pieces of this new product could be created somewhere else where we're already making them, and then we're assembling this new product on a new line. But project evaluation begins to think about product protocol and the steps that are involved in creating the product. The final concept that we want to talk about shortly here is something called the fuzzy front end. We had fuzzy gates already, but the fuzzy front end is this notion that when you begin with a product idea, it's very often difficult to know exactly what the product will look like, or product will be, or how the product will exactly play out. The idea is, as you become more developed, as the product idea becomes more developed, the fuzzy front end begins to go away. So clarity is replacing the fuzziness of the idea. And as you begin to describe the new product, the more you've thought about it and the more that it's been developed, the easier it is to describe what the new product is. So as the product becomes developed from the very beginning of the idea concept to launch, the fuzziness of the product or of the idea will go away, and it'll be replaced with clarity. So the fuzzy front end is an important concept that we want to try to eliminate, of course. The sooner the better as the product becomes developed. All right, phase 4 is a development phase, and phase 4 development actually has two major components. One would be the technical aspects of the product itself. Here we want to actually physically produce the product, and we want to begin to actually lay out the factory, the manufacturing process, or the service process that we'll use in order to deliver the product. So we'll begin to source our raw materials. We'll begin to bring some of those in. We'll begin prototype testing, and we want to make sure that the technical feasibility of the product is actually something we can do. We want to start a very slow scale up to production at this stage. And again, it's more of the physical development of the product as we think of the technical tasks associated with it. The other part of phase 4 development is thinking about developing and creating the marketing plan that will support the new product. So at this point, we want to prepare the strategy and the tactics, and we want to identify, for instance, the pricing strategy we'll use. We want to start thinking about the positioning of the product a little bit. We want to think about distribution channels, and in essence, how the marketing of the product will fit into the business plan of the firm from a business model perspective, but then also from a marketing execution perspective as well. So development then has two stages or two aspects to it: the technical stage and then the marketing stage. Phase 5, the last phase, is commercialization or launch. This will actually include a couple different sub-phases where we do at times a slow rollout. We'll do some market testing at this particular stage. We'll do some maybe territorial rollouts where we don't launch the product to everybody, but rather we launch it to a small market initially, and then we bring it to the larger market during full commercialization. At commercialization, when the launch happens, we start to see sales. We begin to service our sales, and we can make changes and adaptations to our marketing plan if that's something that we need to do to tweak sales and to try to get the most out of our pre-launch and launch activities. So one visual that you can take a look at would be this chart that includes clarity and how well the idea is projected with market value or the likelihood that there'll be market success upon launch. And this is over a time period. So over a period of time, we start with opportunity concepts and idea generation, and then we work through the 5 stages that we've talked about, where we test the product, we do some screening, we do prototype and development work, we start to produce the product, we pilot the concept, we market the concept, and we do the pre-launch activities, and then we launch. And basically the idea is, as we progress through these steps, the product idea and concept becomes less fuzzy and more clear. So we have, at the early period of time, we have a high degree of fuzziness or a low degree of clarity. As we begin to write the PIC and we begin to get to this stage where we're actually producing prototypes and such, the clarity should increase dramatically until we have a product coming off of the line. Then, once our marketing concepts kick in, then the market begins to understand what this product is about, and the market becomes comfortable with the product idea and using this product idea in their lives and buying it and so forth, until the product actually reaches the marketplace during launch and commercialization, at which time people should fully understand why the product exists, what its benefits are, and so forth. So this is a nice little chart. It's a handy chart to kind of place on it the different activities that are done through the 5 major phases of product development, and this notion that as these activities in this process are completed, the definition of the product becomes better and better, more clearly defined until launch actually takes place. As you can imagine, it's very, very, very difficult to market a product that people don't understand. It's hard to market it internally within your firm, and it's hard to market it outside your firm as well to potential consumers, because if they don't understand what it is, they're certainly not going to buy it. Same with inside the firm. If other members of your company don't understand the product that you're trying to develop, they're going to be very resistant to getting on board and championing your idea. So to conclude and to wrap up, just a couple key points here. First, we talked about the 5 broad product development stages or phases that generally exist as we go through this process. We certainly know that this is a stage gate process. We sometimes have fuzzy gates, though, that allow us to move from one stage to the next to accelerate or speed up the process in which we're going to bring a product to market. We have this idea of fuzziness or the fuzzy front end, which we're hoping to eliminate as we move through the process. And then finally, we know that at each stage, we know there are certain things that have to be asked, certain questions we need to clarify before we're allowed to move on to the next segment or the next phase. And those tests are super important, because if we don't have those, then we run the serious risk of moving a bad idea forward, which again ties up resources and time and energy, and it's something that typically we want to avoid. Okay, so this concludes the overview for the new product development process.